Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new series of retro reviews, and for this series we're going to talk about the Harry Potter movies, which I'm actually surprised it's taken me this long to talk about them, but I feel like now with a lot of new Harry Potter stuff coming out, there's no better time than to review the movies. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios Hollywood opened up back in April. We have a new Harry Potter story coming out in the form of a play, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And then in November, we have the release of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a new movie that's set within the Wizarding World. There's a lot of new stuff going on within this lore, so let's just jump into it. But before I talk about the first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for those who live in the UK, I feel like I need to talk about my exposure to the franchise, because I come from a generation that grew up with Harry Potter. We were kids when the books and the movies started, and we basically grew up into our teenage and college years when the books and movies ended. So for a lot of kids in the 90s, including myself, this series holds a special place in our heart. So I remember when the original book came out in 1998. This is my original copy of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Back at school, everyone was talking about this book. Read it, and basically your mind wandered. What J.K. Rowling has done with this, she's taken a simple concept like magic, wizards, dragons, and so on, and just added such a rich depth and mythology to it. And besides Star Wars, there is no series out there that is as popular, as beloved, and as rich with mythology as the Harry Potter series. Fans love to talk about every little detail in this series, whether it's the characters, the spells, the houses within Hogwarts, the other wizarding schools around the wizarding world, and just every little location, creature. You could go on for hours talking about this world, just like with Star Wars. And at school, everyone would say to me, "You kind of look like Harry Potter." I mean, they mostly said that when the movies came out. Hell, I even made it into celebrity lookalikes in one of my old yearbooks as, "He looks like Harry Potter." So that's my original exposure to the Harry Potter series. Kinda got into it on my own, unlike Star Wars, where I was introduced to it through my parents. So I will talk about what the series means to me in further reviews. For now, let's get into the first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. This movie came out in 2001 and was directed by Chris Columbus, and pretty much tells the story of young Harry Potter, an orphaned kid who lives with his horrible aunt and uncle, but soon he finds out that his parents were wizards, which makes him a wizard, so he attends Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to basically hone in his powers. And then he gets sucked into a plot that revolves around the death of his parents and a dark wizard that killed his parents, Lord Voldemort, or He Who Must Not Be Named. And Voldemort also tried to kill Harry himself after his parents were killed, but something happened to where Harry survived, only with a lightning bolt scar on his head. And Voldemort has thought to have been dead after Harry survived. So Harry has become one of the most famous people within the wizarding world because he's known as the boy who lived. So the first Harry Potter movie, along with the first Lord of the Rings movie, came out in probably the best time for them to come out. They came out in the wake of 9/11. Harry Potter came out in November of 2001, and it was just that kind of escapism that everybody needed. America was kind of depressed after the events of 9/11, and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings were just the things we needed to escape, just take us to a world of magic, and this movie does a really good job of that. Yeah, I think it is a very good adaptation of the book. By itself, it also really works as a great kids movie. One thing that people have said a lot of when this movie first came out was that the look of the movie captures what people thought of when they were reading the books, including myself. The production design and the costumes are incredible in this film, especially Hogwarts. Hogwarts is just so expansive, so big. It's so beautiful. It is just what I imagined Hogwarts to be when I read the first book before the movie even came out. And outside of a great look, it also has a fantastic score by the legend himself, John Williams. His Harry Potter scores are really well done. The Harry Potter theme is iconic, almost as iconic as his themes for Star Wars and Indiana Jones. You just need those first few notes, do 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 do, and you instantly know you're listening to the Harry Potter theme. Which, funny enough, is often referred to as the theme for Hedwig, Harry's pet owl, but somehow it just turned into the Harry Potter theme. Similar to how the Japanese Army March theme in the original Godzilla ended up being the Godzilla theme. And the Harry Potter theme might be the last iconic theme that John Williams scored that is not in a Star Wars movie. It's a very good story on its own, a great origin story for the boy who lived, and you have a bunch of great characters. Obviously, we have our three main characters. We have Harry Potter, who's played by Daniel Radcliffe, just a little boy who lives a really average, or in Harry's case, shitty life, but isn't aware until a little later that he's destined for greatness. And then he just embarks on his adventure. Very similar to characters like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Both of them are that classic hero archetype. Then we have Ron Weasley, played by Rupert Grint, who is one of Harry's best friends. Both of his parents come from wizarding families, so he's purebred, and has lived his life around the wizarding world and not the muggle world, or non-magic folk. And then lastly, we have Hermione Granger, played by Emma Watson, who is really the know-it-all student. She comes from a background where her parents are muggles, and she's just gifted with the ability to use magic. She ends up being the brains of the group. Whenever there's a big problem that the two guys can't figure out, Hermione is right there to help them along the way. And I consider this group of main characters to be among one of the greatest trios in fiction, along with Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia in Star Wars, or Ashe, Misty, and Brock in Pokemon. Yes, I said that. You also have a bunch of other great characters like Draco Malfoy, Rubius Hagrid, Neville Longbottom, Professor Albus Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, Professor Snape, and they're all played by really good actors, which I'll talk about more as the series goes on, but for a couple of them, you have Professor Dumbledore, who in this movie and the second one is played by the late Richard Harris. He's basically the classic mentor character, sort of like Gandalf, Merlin, or Obi-Wan Kenobi. That old man who serves as the mentor for our young hero. And Richard Harris at points does seem to be a little tired in terms of his voice. Like sometimes he just has trouble speaking because of his old age. But he manages to pull off the mentor role very well. There are a couple of scenes involving just him and Harry where he really does do a good job. And then you have Professor Snape, played by the late Alan Rickman. I can't believe he's gone, but regardless, Snape is a great character in the sense that he's mysterious, he's strict, and he's just fascinating. A lot of fans will tell you that Alan Rickman was perfectly cast in the role of Snape, and they're true. Alan Rickman does a fantastic job. Just this monotone voice that comes across as very threatening, but it also gives a sense of authority. And in terms of the other kid actor, Draco Malfoy, he's played by Tom Felton, who is probably the best child actor in this movie. He just comes across as a mean bully. He makes fun of Harry Potter and a bunch of the other Gryffindors. He thinks he's better than everyone else because he is in the Slytherin house, which is usually full of those assholes and rich kids. So he thinks he's above the other students in the other houses, but there are moments when you get right down to it, he is a coward. Whenever he's put into intense situations, he is always cowardly, but it's a fun character. And then it's just really cool to see the whole world that J.K. Rowling cooked up, and how she's taken simple fantasy elements and put a lot of rich effort into them, such as the wands are made from different materials or have like a phoenix feather inside of them. She came up with a wizarding sport, Quidditch, which is a cool concept but has one little stupid flaw in the golden snitch. Quidditch itself is kind of worth its own video talking about. And giving different races to each dragon in the wizarding world, she does really create a rich mythology, and this first movie, outside of sending Harry on his journey, is dedicated to showing us the expansive world, and it is just marvelous. Unfortunately, the movie does have some problems. Now, one of them is actually a complaint I have with like differences between the book and the movie. And I'm one of those guys that says, look, the movie can make whatever changes it has to make from the book in order to translate to film, because not everything that works in a book translates to the movie. But what I don't like is when what's translated onto film is worse than the book, and when the original thing in the book so easily could have translated into film. And my problem there is with Wizard's Chess. In the finale of the movie, Harry, Ron, and Hermione have to play a game of Wizard's Chess that Professor McGonagall set up. And in the book, they replace 3 pieces, Ron being a knight, and he basically tells all the other pieces where to go. So he has to sacrifice himself to the Queen just so they can win the game and Harry can go save the day. So the Queen takes him out and really injures Ron, knocks him off, and there's consequences there. Now, in the movie version, Ron Weasley's actually writing a knight piece. He doesn't replace it. So when it comes to the point when he has to sacrifice himself, and Harry and Hermione are like, no, Ron, don't do it, you kind of sit there going, couldn't you easily just tell the knight where to go and then just jump off? Because technically you are writing the knight. Your piece is still on the board. You're not going to lose anything. So it's just something that didn't work out too well. The other problems I have don't really involve comparing to the book. They're just more problems with the movie itself. For one thing, the CG in this movie is pretty bad. Not all the CG. There are some good effects shots here and there involving CG. And when I say the CG in this movie is bad, I mean that more in the sense of time hasn't been kind to it. Sort of like with Star Wars Attack of the Clones. For example, the mountain troll in this movie looks like something straight out of Shrek, which came out the same year as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It just hasn't aged well. Another effect that doesn't quite hold up are the effects they use for the ghosts that roam around Hogwarts. For 2001, they just look so fake, and they look like effects that could take place in the 90s or late 80s. They just don't hold up very well at all. And then there are a few effects shots where students are riding on the brooms, and you really get a good look at the CG humans when they're not moving around a lot, and they look pretty bad. The other problems I have with the movie are some of the child actors, mainly Daniel Radcliffe. Now, this is kind of the first movie that a lot of these kids have been in, so I could cut them a little slack, but Daniel Radcliffe, for being the main character and the main hero, he comes across as really flat. For example, when Hagrid tells Harry that he's a wizard, sure, his eyes light up like, wait, what? But the way he delivers his lines in the tone of voice that he's giving, it doesn't make me convinced that Harry's all that surprised. He's just like, I'm a wizard? Okay, whatever, that's cool. And I think this is just more of a problem with Daniel Radcliffe, because Chris Columbus has proven himself to be good with child actors. I mean, Home Alone is proof of that. And Tom Felton and Emma Watson do really good jobs in this movie, but Daniel Radcliffe just doesn't seem to be all there in terms of his acting abilities. Sometimes he just seems a little bored. Sometimes he is good. I'm not going to say he's totally bad, but he could have done a much better job. But he does get better as the series go on. All of the kid actors get better as the series progresses. And then there are a few notes that I want to say that aren't really pros or cons. One thing in this movie that might irritate some people is that a lot of the dialogue is exposition, which is fine because it's kind of used to introduce us into the wizarding world, like tell us what muggles are, how you go to Hogwarts, the different houses, how Quidditch works. A lot of the expositional dialogue is very helpful, and it doesn't come across as very hokey, because Harry himself has lived a life among muggles, so he is just discovering the wizarding world for the first time, same as we, the audience, are discovering it on film for the first time. And then one little thing that irritates me, but it's like for a second and should not really be a complaint at all, is there's a scene when Hagrid is playing the Harry Potter theme on a flute, which is really weird. I never like it when movie characters within a movie know the movie's theme. Like in Ghostbusters 2, when Ray and Winston are playing the Ghostbusters theme at a kid's party. It just comes across as really bizarre. But on the whole, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is a really, really good movie for kids. And adults in general. It's a great adaptation of its source material, with most of its changes acceptable for making a movie out of. And just as a movie on its own, not comparing it to the book, it's a really great fantasy film. You'll watch it, and when the credits roll, you'll sit there with a real good feeling. So Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is definitely worth seeing in your lifetime if you haven't already. I've gotten past the point where I'll say I'd be shocked if somebody didn't see these movies. It's just really a great kids movie. Go watch it if you haven't. And that's my review for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So we got my long introduction of how I got introduced into the series. And this review out of the way, we have 7 more movies to go. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on this first movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.